Welcome, Greek U Nation, to episode number 300. We made it of the Fraternity Foodie Podcast. I'm your host, Mike Eilon, CEO of Greek University. I'm a speaker and a two-time author. Our second book is called From Letters to Leaders, Redefining New Member Education and Leveraging Belonging to Eliminate Hazing. So go and pick up that book today on Amazon. We call these episodes the Fraternity Foodie Podcast because there is nothing like great food to bring fraternity and sorority leaders together. Fun fact, hazing prevention is a topic that I am very passionate about, and I love talking about it. I was hazed at the University at Buffalo as an undergraduate. I made a big deal about it when it happened to all of my brothers, and I told them that hazing would end with me. I got that done by building allies one-on-one in the chapter before I had that conversation at our chapter meeting. Hazing eventually returned decades later, which underscores the importance of talking about hazing prevention on our campuses every 6 months, since that is when new members join our organizations, and many of them have been hazed in high school well before they ever reached a college campus. This is a necessary conversation for every high school student and every college student in America, and we are going to continue that conversation today on our podcast. Now, Max Gruver died on September 14th, 2017 from a hazing event held at the Phi Delta Theta house. He is one of 4 young men to die as a direct result of fraternity hazing in 2017 alone. More than 200 students have died due to hazing in the United States since 1838. Now, universities react to these dangerous and too often deadly hazing situations with Greek life suspensions, expulsions, and other punishments, but it's not enough. Hazing on college campuses must end. The Max Gruver Foundation exists to make sure that hazing-related deaths do not continue. Now, the Max Gruver Foundation has proudly distributed over 100,000 fly-high Max wristbands to students at educational speaking events, and the families have presented at numerous universities, organizations, and high schools over the past couple of years. The Max Gruver Foundation and the Gruver family have most notoriously helped the state of Louisiana create an updated felony hazing law, which is known as the Max Gruver Act. The Max Gruver Foundation funds 2 annual scholarships in memory of Max at Blessed Trinity Catholic High School and Queen of Angels Catholic School, both in Roswell, Georgia. Our next guest is Rae Ann Gruver, Max's mom. Welcome to the show, Rae Ann.
Hey, Mike, thank you so much for having me. Please ignore my dogs as they bark in the back again, but thanks very much for having me on.
Of course. I am so glad to be connected with you. I'm honored that you are on our 300th episode. I felt like this is so fitting for you to come and talk to our student listeners that are all in fraternities and sororities to share your story. I think it's so important that we talk about this, like I said, every 6 months at a minimum, if not more. So thank you for sharing your story. Now, I wanted to go back to your college experience because I think it's kind of interesting, as we talk about Max and I just think it's interesting to go back and understand your experience with Greek life. Now, you decided on Clemson University for your undergraduate experience.
Go Tigers.
Go Tigers. So what made you choose Clemson?
To be honest, I was living in Miami. I grew up in Miami, Florida, and we were at the 1981 National Championship. And I told my parents that night, I am going to go to that school. I am going to Clemson. And they were like, yeah, okay, we'll see about that. I was 11 at the time. So sure enough, though, look, that's exactly where I landed up. I just kept it sitting there. And when I went to apply to colleges, I applied there. We went to visit and everything. And I loved it from 1981 on. So go Tigers.
I love it. Go Tigers. Yeah. And of course, you did join a sorority. You joined Alpha Delta Pi. So what was special about the women at Alpha Delta Pi that made you want to join?
My sister is a legacy from University of Florida. So, or I'm a legacy, I should say. So, of course, I was looking at 80 Pi, but, I'm the younger sister. So it was like, oh, I don't know that I want to do what my older sister's doing. So I really, to be honest, I kind of not gave him a hard time, but you know what I'm saying? I was like, oh, well, maybe I like something else. But you know what? I mean, it is who you find, and it does work itself out through that whole crazy, rush system. But I really did love the girls at 80 Pi, and they were just really easygoing. I'm a super easygoing person. I'm laid back. I like to have a good time. I'm fun. And that's how the girls were. And we were honestly like a big mix of different types of girls, which is always fun too. Not everybody was the same. So I had a wonderful, wonderful college experience with 80 Pi. So, I mean, it was absolutely the place I was supposed to be while I was at Clemson,
Yeah, I
for
love
sure.
hearing that. I love hearing that. The other thing that people might not know about you is you've been a registered nurse for decades. So,
Mhm.
I'm just kind of curious, given what we've been through here over the last couple of years. I mean, what makes you want to stay in the field of nursing despite all of these challenges that we're seeing with COVID-19 over the last few years, staffing shortages, and then just all of the stress associated with being in healthcare?
Well, I didn't get to tell you before we started this
Yeah.
is I am not in nursing anymore. At 2018, not quite a year after Max died, I, let's say, retired from nursing. I tried to go back, after he passed away, and I loved where I worked. I just switched jobs right at the end of Max's senior year.
Mhm.
And really, I was gearing up for a whole new part of my nursing career now that Max was going off to school, and I had two other kids that they're old, they were in that time high school and junior high. And, it was time for a change for me too. And very excited about it. Was working in this concierge office and just absolutely loved it. And, Max happened, and, I was off for a while and then tried to go back, and just, really, it was really hard. We, started going on with the foundation, and the foundation really picked up a lot of steam really fast. And, we were being asked to speak in a lot of places, and just a lot of things were going on. We were flying back and forth to Baton Rouge for the law, and it just was too much on both sides. Like, I mean, obviously they needed a nurse there, and I couldn't be there because I really needed to be with the foundation and with Max. So, it worked itself out the way it did. But not saying I would never go back to nursing, but it's a great field. I mean, yeah, I was in it for almost 30 years. Technically, I'm
Mhm.
still a nurse, but I loved it. Yeah, I was a NICU nurse for about 20, and then I worked at the kids' school for about 7 or 8. So I was with them, had their hours, which was great. And then, like I said, I went into this whole other type of nursing now that it was like kind of my time to go out there. So anyway, I give kudos to all those nurses and doctors and everybody that had to go through COVID. I mean, that was really hard to watch, and I mean, kudos to them. They are heroes. They really
No
are.
question.
Yeah.
No question about it. They are definitely the heroes. There's no question. Now, you have a picture of the last hug that you gave Max when you dropped him off at school at LSU. What did it feel like? Talk to our audience about what it feels like as a parent dropping your son off for the first time at school.
Well, I always said, and I even said it that day when we left him, was I honestly think we had the easiest college drop off ever in the entire world. I have said this so many times because we did. We, I mean, I remember when I got dropped off at college, my mom and I would fight, like, everything was really tense and all that kind of stuff. And it wasn't with Max. We were there for a couple days. We had gone, got more stuff at Walmart, whatever, but dropping him in his room, I mean, it all just went so smoothly. He was just laid back. We met his roommate's parents. Everybody was just in a good place. Everybody was in a good mood. Um, we took him out to eat one more time before we got on the road, and I almost didn't take that picture because at that time I was like, let's just be in the moment, right? Like, everything's not Facebook happy, and everything's not Facebook, moments. They shouldn't be. And I'm so happy though that I did say to Steve, like, just take a picture of me and Max. And there's a series of them. So how that, that one came out. But I mean, thank God I have that picture because I absolutely love that picture. And it has meant so much to have that because we were all happy. He was so happy. So, you know, it was one of the best experiences of our life at that time on August 15th, dropping him off. So I wish that for every parent, that they have a smooth run like that.
Yeah. And then, of course, Max was looking at Phi Delta Theta at LSU, and you actually did some research about the chapter before Max joined. What did you find when you started doing research?
We just went on the computer. He had a couple he was looking at, Phi Delta, yeah, being one of them. And, we went to their national page and, just went through their whole website, and we found a whole section for the parents. And we watched a video that they had on there. I don't think they have it on anymore. I'm sure they don't have it on anymore. But and they just, they were just telling you how, you and your son were making this great decision about being a Phi Delta Theta, and the alcohol-free housing, the hazing-free houses or chapters, and we were like, oh, this really sounds like a great fraternity. And we had that book that LSU gave out, the Greek Tiger, and we had looked them up in there, and they looked good in there, but everything's good. Nothing bad is anywhere. So you couldn't find anything that was negative or possibly negative. So, that's all we could find was these great accolades for them. And, we're like, okay, well, he's, seems like a good chapter.
Yeah.
And oh my God, we just got the last of his things, which I know it's 5 years, and we just got this weekend. And there's a voicemail on his phone from me, like August 19th, telling him congratulations on Phi Delta. I mean, I obviously broke down, but I was like, wow, like, doesn't that hit you in the gut, to hear that. So he was happy though. He was.
Yeah. As I have a big presence on social media, and I do talk about hazing prevention quite often on the videos. And, sometimes I think, when I look at some of the comments on social media, especially on TikTok has a little bit of an edge to it. It just seems that a lot of times people don't take the hazing seriously. And so, if I know this is difficult for you to talk about, and so, if you're okay with it, I would love for you to share with our audience, what happened with Max on September 14th, 2017, as you know it.
Well, obviously anyone that's seen us speak has obviously heard me tell the whole story, which I won't go into. And it's the whole story as I know it through the DA and through his trials and through testimony and things like that. But, basically it was one of those nights, they called it Bible study. They all were called to the house to be there at 10 o'clock on September 13th. Again, the long story short, they were, marched upstairs, hot sauce and mustard thrown on them. They had to get in basically a lineup up in the top hallway. There was no lights on, a strobing light, loud blaring music up there. Obviously that's all disorienting, right? I know they had to do calisthenics, like wall sits, and they were standing on your legs or running across your legs. I know another young man, they were making him drink, and then he laid it up, I know, with a case of beer, cardboard box on top of his head that he had to wear most of the night during this. I mean, it's humiliating stuff, right? And then obviously the big thing was Bible study, and you had to answer questions about the Phi Delta history, or you had to, recite the Greek alphabet. And if you got any answers wrong, you had to drink. You had to take a pull off of a bottle. And the alcohol they were using that night was diesel, which is 190 proof grain alcohol. It's literally poison. And it's straight, it's like moonshine, right? Or whatever. But anyway, Max obviously was getting things wrong. So he was having to do shots. They were forcing pledges, like, they're doing the shots, and you have to, it's not just a shot either. You have to drink and drink and drink until they tell you to stop. And they were saying some of them had to drink like probably up to 10 seconds off those bottles. It's been kind of calculated that Max probably had to at least consume 32 ounces of diesel alcohol. His BAC was 0.495, which it probably was higher. That was as high as the machine went, to be honest. But anyway, so, he clear. This all happened in like an hour and a half. At one point he had, towards the end, he had a puke bag around his neck, and they decided, oh, well, we're still not done. Let's do that Greek alphabet. And, they had to go down the line and recite the letters of the Greek alphabet, one by, each of them. And, it always kills me to talk about it because, this is how drunk he was, right? So incapacitated that he's, got a puke bag around his neck. He's probably already puking, right? And they're still making him do stuff. And he only had to remember upsilon. That was his letter in the line. And he couldn't do it. He couldn't remember it. And they said he still had to probably pull 5 or 6 more times off those liquor bottles. Oh. And, it's just, it's just so inhumane. I don't even know what the words are for it, that you are forcing somebody and you can tell there's something wrong. But they took him down that night and put him on the couch, and a lot of things happened during the night. Nobody called 911. It was very obvious from all this testimony that, clearly people thought something was wrong, but then they were arguing not to call 911. They cleaned up the house. They cleaned up Max. And Max basically leaned it up. They said in the autopsy, he died on that couch probably between 4 and 5 a.m. And he died literally choking to death on his own vomit. So, with brothers knowing that he was this incapacitated at that time and not calling 911. And then in the morning, I don't know, this to me is also amazing and horrible in that way. The brothers called the pledges to come back to the house and get him and, carry him out of the house, put him in a truck and take him to the hospital, telling them to lie too, that they lied about where they found him and what happened to him. Because I knew the minute I got the phone call when I was at work, I knew immediately there was something wrong with the story, because the nurse said to me, they found him unresponsive in his dorm room. And so they brought him to the hospital. And I said, that's impossible. Because Max was probably 220, 230 pounds. And he lived on the 3rd floor of a dorm in the center of campus. So you can't tell me they just carried him down at 11 in the morning, and nobody noticed that. Like, nobody at the front desk and RA students, that somebody would have called an ambulance. So immediately we knew there was something wrong with the story and what happened. So
I am so sorry.
That was a nutshell, but
yeah,
that's the story.
I am so sorry. That is absolutely awful. I am so sorry that happened. And, from this point forward, this was a horrific event. How do we create good from something so horrific?
That it's a great question, Mike, because it's a hard question too, because that's all we're trying to do is, Max has that great quote. I don't know if you read it on his website, and we've got to make something good out of something bad, and we've been trying, right, for almost 5 years now, and we'll keep trying, but it's not easy. It's an uphill battle. It's really an uphill battle, and like you said, it's got to be that constant education. And it's got to be that constant discussion of hazing. And, it's like anything. If you keep it back in the closet and you don't talk about it, people think it's okay to do it because nobody's talking about it. And I do believe in the last 5 years, especially, and I'm not saying, because of me, but just a lot of people really standing up and standing out there. People are talking about it more. And people are reporting about it more. And I've heard some people say, it's just worse now with y'all, you guys out there speaking and blah, blah, blah. It's not worse. It's just people are actually talking about it now. They're not pretending like it's not going on. So I think that's something good. I think when you see these reports and these arrests, not the deaths, that's not good at all. It's never, ever going to be. But when you see these universities and these headquarters standing up and doing stuff and DAs, that's what's going to make the change. Everybody's got to really put their feet in and say no.
Yeah, the reports and the arrests are really key, I think, for accountability.
Yeah.
And part of that is talking to the judges too and having them take this seriously. And the arrests are so critical to make sure this behavior does not continue to happen. So we need more reports, more arrests to ultimately make sure that this goes away. So, what is your advice? I mean, if there's somebody listening right now and they know that there is hazing in their fraternity going on, what is your advice? What should they do?
You absolutely have to report it. You need to step in sooner rather than later. There is it's not a great story. When I say that, I don't mean it like that, but there's a story with Max that, on September 11th, just, 2 days before this Bible study, their executive board got together and talked about the individual who was charged with negligent homicide in Max's case because he was being dangerous and reckless with the pledges. So they knew it. The exec board knew it. A bunch of guys knew it. They got together, they talked about it. And, they could have done a lot of things, right? They could have suspended him. They could have said, hell, just stay away from the pledges. You can't talk to them at all. They could have fined him. They could have thrown him out. They could have called headquarters and had I can't remember what it's called, but, get him out or suspend him with them.
Mm-hmm.
And they decided, you know what, we're going to talk to him tonight after chapter, and we're going to give him one more chance. And do you know what he said to them? I can do whatever. Am I allowed to swear on this?
Yeah, go ahead.
He said, I can do whatever the fuck I want. And 2 nights later, he was one of the ones in charge of Bible study. And he is the one who was, all over my son's ass at this thing. And so that was his one more chance. And he killed my son. So I'm just saying, you have to step in. Exec boards have to step in if they know anyone is hazing, because that whole exec board is liable for Max's death too. So you need to step in, get your headquarters involved, get your Greek life involved. Call you, Mike. You'll help them.
I sure will.
You can call me. I've helped many people talk to their fraternities and their universities and get something moving before something bad has happened. But you have to talk to somebody. Talk to your parents. I don't care who it is, but you've got to stop what's going on, because we say this all the time. Hazing is really just Russian roulette with another person's life, and you really have no idea when that bullet's going to go, and it really could be like that in an hour and 18 minutes, an hour, maybe it's 30 minutes, but that's how fast any hazing situation can go.
Yeah. Yeah, you got to report it to the national organization, report it to the university, report it to me, report it to Rae Ann. I know every fraternity and sorority executive director out there. I'm more than happy to have that conversation on your behalf. Just get us the information, whatever you know, the date, the time, the place, what information you have. The more information we have to go on, the better that we can assist and make sure that nobody else gets hurt. But you got to say something. You have to report this so that way we can ensure that one of the students on campus does not get hurt. That's incredibly, incredibly important. And, one of the other things that I saw recently is that you actually have an expanded partnership with Phi Delta Theta to deliver high school anti-hazing education. How did that all come about? And what are you working on the high schools?
So we kind of came together. All my years are mixed up now with COVID. Yeah. I think we announced our partnership. It was like the beginning of 2020, I think. And it's been the last couple of years. So, and it's been good. Obviously it's we're working with their national headquarters and they're working with us, but I think it's a good partnership. We're holding each other accountable on the things we're doing. And one of my big things was, this high school education, because that's really what we started the foundation on, was we wanted to start high school education, but then the college, traveling, just like I said, just kind of took off, and which was good. And that's very important too. But I really do want to get back into high schools and talking to high schools, and Phi Delta agreed with that. And, Sean Wagner's been great. Him and I have definitely, gotten to be, tight with talking about all this. And we basically came together and we said, a peer-to-peer program would be great. And so for example, just this past spring, we normally speak at Max's school, Blessed Trinity, and I asked the school, hey, could we have the Phi Delta Thetas from University of Georgia come over and do this new program that we developed with Phi Delta? And they were like, absolutely, that's great. And so it was kind of like our kickoff with it. And oh my gosh, it went really, really well. We told Max's story at the beginning, and then the three young men were great, and they did their presentation, and they talked it peer to peer about what it was like for them in high school, what kind of hazing went on when they were in high school, and you think it's okay, that you had to do X, Y, and Z. And you're thinking that's okay, and then you get to college, and it could turn into more. And they just were really great with talking to them. And these kids, they were sitting there watching them and really taking it in, right? Because that's going to be them in the next year. So it really, really was a great program. We obviously have to tweak a few things, and we're working on that right now, but we've definitely got a lot of interest from the Phi Delta Theta chapters across the country. And, we're hoping to get at least 15 high schools hopefully done over the next year. And like I said, we have a ton of interest, and I'm very excited about where this could really go. And I think, again, it's just another way to educate, right? Like, you can see me and Evelyn speak somewhere, right? Which I think is always very powerful to mothers or Kathleen Wyant or anybody. But then again, that peer-to-peer, it's just a whole nother way to go in, right? Because as you know, with any speaker, somebody might hear what you're really saying in one part, but they really hear me in another. So I think it's always good. You got to keep changing it up. You got to keep their interest going. And again, I just think this is another great way to do that.
Yeah, I think you're really onto something. I mean, number one, we know just from looking at the data that a lot of this starts on a high school, could be in athletics, it could be in the band. And so even I'm seeing in the college arena, they're taking some of those hazing activities that they experience and bringing it with them to college. One particular case, I know, there was hazing going on in a high school church retreat, and that's where they got the idea about hazing in college once they got into the fraternity. So I love that you're moving younger, because I think that's where it starts, and you got to go straight for the origin. So I think that's really smart. And I love the fact that you're doing peer-to-peer education, because take something unrelated. We'll take hazing out of it for a minute. Sexual assault prevention. Yes, I can come and do a great program on sexual assault prevention, but the peer-to-peer education that they do following that program, that's where the real magic happens, because now you have students talking about bystander intervention, or you have students talking about consent and how to get consent on a college campus. That's really where students are going to listen, right? They're going to listen to each other.
Yes.
And so that's why I think what you're doing in the high schools is just phenomenal. And congratulations. I think you found a winning formula to really make, some huge progress. And so, thank you for sharing your story. Thank you for continuing this work. Thank you for finding things that are going to be effective to make sure that we protect our sons, our daughters. Heck, my son, my daughter, once they get to a college campus in the next year or two. So we're all indebted to you. And thank you so much for sharing that story, because boy, oh boy, it's so important for college students to hear it from you. I think it's so powerful. So thank you for all of that.
Thank you.
Yeah. Now, we do love good food here at the Fraternity Foodie Podcast. I mean, I'm not going to lie. I love a good meal. And so, I was kind of curious just thinking about our talk here today. I mean, what did Max like in terms of, favorite food spots in Roswell, Georgia, that maybe I can go and check out?
Well, I have a couple for you. I saw this question. I was like, oh, I got some good ones. So number one, right in downtown Roswell is Table in Maine. It was actually Max's first job ever. He was the food runner there. Great restaurant. It's Southern food. The fried chicken and macaroni and cheese, or the shrimp and grits, his two favorites. And let me tell you, Steve and I would say, oh my God, how does he make any money? Because every night he works, he would come home with, all this chicken and whatever he got. I was like, you're never going to make any money if you keep spending it all on your food. But so that was pretty funny. So definitely he loved that. And vintage pizza up in Alpharetta, well, Crab Apple. Oh my gosh, their pizza. Oh yeah, we had many a birthdays there with him. Pepperoni pizza, 100%.
I
And he
love it.
always loves the Shake Shack.
Oh
For,
yeah. Oh yeah. Everyone loves Shake Shack. That's great. Well, I mean,
I've never been. I've never been.
oh, you have to go. It's so
Oh, we know
delicious.
I think we're gonna go this year when his birthday's in January, and we usually go to one of his favorite restaurants. And
Yeah.
we almost went last year, but I was like, you know what, this year I think we're gonna go, and I'm gonna have my first Shake Shack.
You have to go. You're really going to enjoy it. Clearly, Max has great taste in food, and I live in Nashville, so it's real easy for me to hop over to those couple of places. I'm going to let you know what I think once I have some of that food, the fried chicken. I mean, come on,
Well,
the
if you're there, you
pizza.
better call me because it's right up the street from me. So you better call me and I'll come
I,
meet you.
I promise you I will. I promise you I will. So thank you so much for all of this. This has just been fantastic. Now, to our listeners who are listening right now, how can they learn more about Max, learn more about the Gruver family? How can our listeners support the work of the Max Gruver Foundation?
Well, 100% follow us on social media. We are on Instagram. We are on Facebook. Go to our website, maxgruverfoundation.com. Our big fundraisers for the year are always, we do Max's Fly High Max 5K. And this year it's March 4th of 2023. And that night we'll have our wine tasting and auction. I am dying for Max's race to go more virtual. It's gotten bigger and bigger with the virtual each year, but I would love to see chapters and universities across the country participate virtually and, have their own, 5K on campus or around campus, at LSU, at, University of Buffalo, like wherever, or, you can also do it on your treadmill, but, but I would love to see that get bigger and, for chapters to participate. And like I said, we get a lot of kids that come from the universities all around, we're right here in North Atlanta. And, a lot of kids come, from Oglethorpe, UGA, University of North Georgia, University of West Georgia. And it's great. I love every year it's more and more. And, Chi Phi, Phi Delta, they've all been big supporters in 80 Pi. And that's been great. So we appreciate it. And we would love to keep this just going. And again, it's just raising more awareness. And I feel like it's really hard to come and do a 5K race and then go home and haze a bunch of kids. That's what I always say, like, how do you come see us speak and then leave? And it does happen. I've heard actually now, like not that night, but we were somewhere and like 2 weeks later, there was a big hazing incident. I'm like, how did you just sit through Evelyn Piazza and then still go and do it? I guess that's the one thing I cannot figure out, Mike. Maybe you and I can work on that.
Yeah, I think you and I can talk more about that and see what we can do together. I'd love to partner with you. I'm certainly going to suggest that virtual 5K when I do my hazing prevention programs to try to get all the campuses that I talk at to join in on that virtual 5K. I can certainly talk to some of my fraternity and sorority exec friends to see if more fraternities and sororities can adopt that and start sending their
I think
chapters
it'd
to
be great.
participate. Yeah.
I just imagine it in my head, and it gets bigger and everything every year, but I just really think it could really take off and just, again, you're supporting something. And I mean, again, I guess it's really, you can't support something if you're doing it, but well, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I just think it just is just another way, that awareness, that education, we give about a lot of information from a lot of other great organizations in, the race packets and stuff. So yeah, it's
Love it.
just, yeah.
All right. Well, listen, we're going to work on some ways that we can work together on this because I just absolutely love everything that you're doing. So please continue doing the work. I know it's hard and, it's not easy, certainly not easy for you and Steve to continue doing this work. So thank you. Thank you that, that you keep talking about it. And, my job here is just to make sure that more people get to hear Max's story and then support the great work that you're doing at the Max Gruver Foundation. So again, thank you so much for what you do. It's really important.
No, thanks, Mike. And you too. I appreciate all you're doing. So thank you very much. And thanks for having me on.
Of course, it's my pleasure. And to our listening audience, if you like this talk with Rae Ann, please, please make sure that you like it. Make sure that you share it on social media with other college students in the fraternity and sorority community, in the college community, even in the high schools. Please make sure that Rae Ann's words go everywhere. We want this video to go viral. So please please share it. And thank you so much for joining us. We are going to see you on another episode of the Fraternity Foodie Podcast. Thanks so much, and we'll see you soon.